All right, let's talk Chicago Bears. This is a team with a lot of momentum. We've covered them this entire offseason. They're definitely trending in the right direction. They made a lot of big time moves. And now that we got mini camps, OTAs, all of that behind us, we're getting close to training camp. We got some interesting evidence out of Chicago that points to exactly what the Bears have done and what they will do that's even better than people realize. We'll give you this in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew. And this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Chicago Bears made a lot of big-time moves this offseason, and of course, it began with the hiring of head coach Ben Johnson, formerly the offensive coordinator and play caller for the NFC North rival Detroit Lions. You all know that, of course. And then the Bears raised a couple eyebrows at the time during the 2025 NFL Draft, when in the first round they selected Colson Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, top tight end prospect in most people's minds, very complete player. A lot of people said, no, it may not be the biggest need for Chicago, but he's a really good player, really nice addition. He'll fit in nicely into what Johnson wants to do. And then the Bears in the second round, they went out and got Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. A lot of value. A lot of people thought he would be a first round kind of guy, then fell to the second round. And a lot of people stepped back and said, okay, well, you had Cole Kmet, you got Colson Loveland. Okay, that's fair. Loveland's a good player. But you already had DJ Moore, you had Romo Dunes, you got all these guys in terms of skill players and playmakers. Do you have maybe too much here? Do you have a little too much firepower? Do you have other areas you need to focus on in the draft to make your team better? And it's very clear based on some recent data that Ben Johnson outsmarted everyone with what he was trying to do. Let's pull up our first graphic here to highlight what I'm talking about. So this is going back to Ben Johnson offense, going back to 2021 when he first arrived for Detroit in a key offensive role before becoming the official play caller in 2022. Look at the receiving grade according to PFF. So just you can see it gets better each and every year. 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, right? In 2021, they're kind of young. Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of new to the picture. 2022, 2023, they start to add Slayton Laporta, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs. They get better, more experience. They work together. Then they just explode to 2024, right? They just get better and better receiving grade. Here's why this is so important, Bears fans. Here's the big takeaway. Let's pull up our next chart right here. This is correlating that same receiving grade, and then we're going to look at wins for Ben Johnson's offense on top of that. The slope, the correlation is nearly identical, folks. This is absolutely bonkers. Ben Johnson-led offenses, the better they get at receiving grade, the more playmaking ability they have, however you want to describe it, the more wins they generate, right? And the Lions, they won because of their offense. They had some good defensive players, don't get me wrong, but they were a high-flying, high-scoring offense. That's how they won football games. And you can see Ben Johnson, he wins when he's got a lot of playmakers. And like I mentioned before, he started off not a lot of wins. It's just a young Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets better. They add Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, right? They develop. Sam Laporta gets added into the fold. They sign David Montgomery, right? They get better and better and better. And then suddenly they become the elite playmaking team we saw last season. This is what the Lions showed with Ben Johnson running the show. In his offense, if you have elite playmakers and a lot of them, an overabundance, some might say too much allocated to the playmakers, to the skill positions, Ben Johnson says, that's what I need to win. You give me that, I will put up so many points. You can't help but win. And this graph, folks, I mean, just stare at it for a second. We look for correlation on this channel all the time to figure out what, in terms of strategies, what leads directly to winning. And it's hard to figure it out. This chart right here makes it very, very clear. Ben Johnson offenses, what leads to wins with Ben Johnson offenses is having great receiving grades. What leads to great receiving grades? Having a lot of great receivers in terms of wide receivers, slot receivers, tight ends, receiving running backs across the board. And that's exactly what Ben Johnson was proving this offseason. They already had a lot of dollars and draft picks and things like that allocated to the skill players before the NFL draft. And he said, I'm not done. I know what it takes to win. Give me two more of them. Give me Burden. Give me Loveland. He got his guys, and now we're seeing exactly the result of it. Now, I don't know where on this scale the Bears will end up, right? We'll have to see when actually the games kick off and we go live, of course, this fall on Sundays. But I think it's very clear that Ben Johnson understood what worked for him in Detroit. It was having great receiving playmakers, and then his scheme and strategy would unleash the running game paired with a solid offensive line and make things very easy for the quarterback. He is recreating that, and I think based on what he's done so far, he has recreated that. And again, I don't know where on the scale it is, right? We'll have to figure out exactly where the Bears are going to be. I think they're going to be a lot more than 5 wins. I don't know if they're all the way up to 15 wins. We'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out. But it's very clear, Ben Johnson, it's not going to take him 3 years, 4 years like it did in Detroit. He's going to get there a lot earlier with Chicago, and these two moves, along with the entire package, is clearly proof that this Bears team is going to be very dangerous this upcoming upcoming fall, folks. This was a genius job, a massive deal here, kind of slid under the radar, but critically important by Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all this. I know I just threw a lot at you, but first, Bears fans, in the comment section below, we're talking receiving grades. We're talking wide receivers here for a little bit. So let me ask you this interesting question. Who is the greatest Bears wide receiver, in your opinion, of all time? Right? It's kind of really can go a bunch of different ways here. There's not really like a transcendent guy that comes out, at least at the top of my head, but I'm sure you have some opinions. Give us your thoughts. The greatest Bears wide receiver of all time. Put them in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe and sign up for our weekly newsletter. 100% free, doesn't cost you anything. Extra content. We throw a lot of different stuff at you with the newsletter. Highly recommend it. It's on the Substack platform. So make sure you sign up. Again, 100% free. Links in description below. Make sure you put your comment down there as well, answering my question. But enough from me, Mize. Over to you now. What are your thoughts on this data and just everything going on with the Bears right now?
Yeah, Nick, I think it's interesting when you point out and you see what's going on as far as the Lions versus the Bears, what they've been able to do, and what Ben Johnson's wanting to do with this team. And I think that's the key here is when you look at what these guys are doing, when you look at what these teams are doing, it's getting firepower at the offensive skill positions, and especially in the receiving game. You talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, great receiving running back, getting that guy in there, doing a lot of strong stuff. And when you look at what they do it very efficiently as well. And I look at the Lions last year and what they're able to do. And you see these guys, you see Amon-Ra St. Brown got 140 targets, Jameson Williams got 90, Sam Laporta 83, Jahmyr Gibbs got 63 targets. A lot of guys in this offense getting a lot of targets in the receiving game and doing a lot of good stuff with it. Because you look here, I think this is the key for me. We look at these guys and we see what they do with those targets. And I think yards per average is a really great way. See how efficient they were with the ball in their hands. Amon-Ra St. Brown with that 140 targets. Does he get diluted? No, he's still 11 yards per catch. That's really great. You look at Jameson Williams, the big play guy, the giant threat, 17.3 yards per catch for him, doing great things. Sam Laporta, the tight end, 12.1 yards per catch for him. And Jahmyr Gibbs, 9.9 yards per catch there. Doing all really great things. You take that, flip it on its head, go look at what the Bears did. The Bears did that, and they fed the ball to a lot of different people. Tons of targets on this Bears team throughout the receiving core, at least. 140 for DJ Moore, 121 for Keenan Allen, 101 for Romo Dunes, and everyone else falls off a cliff. Cole Kmet got 50 targets. DeAndre Swift got 50 targets. It's not quite as balanced and quite as spread out as the Lions, and they do much worse. Get 9.9 yards per catch for DJ Moore. 140 targets, and you're only averaging 10 yards catch. It's not quite as good as, 2 more yards catch for the Lions here. You look at Keenan Allen, 10.6. Where's that big play threat? Where's the guy that can go out and do the big kind of stuff like Jameson Williams did? Now this team, they need to go out and get the right type of players. You look at the the running back and tight end position as well. They need to get those type of players. This is a team that is building into what Ben Johnson wants in the offense. Yes, they have a lot of weapons on there. Yes, there's a lot of good players on the Bears team already, but were they the right kind of players? Were they the kind of guys that Ben Johnson needed to make his offensive click? I don't think so, because they wouldn't have gone out and got so many guys if that was the case. I think getting guys like Burden, getting guys like Colston Loveland, give him that more dynamic style of player, a little bit better, a little bit more fitting to what he wants to do offensively. I think that's going to be a big key for the Bears this year. I look to see guys get a lot of targets, but be very efficient with them and be very effective with their targets as well. It's not just get the ball as much as we can to people and see what they can do. You're going to know these guys are going to be effective with the ball in their hands. And I think that is going to be the Ben Johnson effect on this Bears team.
You bring up a great point, right? Because just because someone has a lot of catches or a lot of targets or whatever it may be, doesn't necessarily mean they were efficient, productive, or even frankly that good. We talked about Cole Kmet. He actually, in terms of his analytical performance, was in the bottom half, really the bottom third in terms of tight ends in the National Football League in 2024. So I'm not saying he's a terrible player, but the reality is the numbers speak for themselves. He did not have a good 2024 season, and he doesn't seem to be trending in the right direction. So it makes sense to upgrade with the addition of Colston Loveland. And one of the things that can happen, especially when you look at a team that's got, a few big name guys like Keenan Allen, for example, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and you see that, they got some catches, receiving yards. And at this point in their situations, and certainly Keenan Allen, as he was in his career, as old as he was, the latter part of his career, of course, just because someone has a lot of volume doesn't mean, like you said, they're efficient or effective. I look at the NBA examples. For example, I grew up on Monte Ellis, for anyone who remembers that name. He always would score a lot of points, but he was not an efficient scorer. He was, his teams never really won. He's the guy that would drop 25 and would kind of throttle down the offense. Wouldn't work very well, but his numbers would look good on SportsCenter and say, oh, he's a pretty good player. Look, he scored 25 points. In the reality, he just wasn't that good. I think there's a lot of guys with the Bears over the past couple seasons that had some decent numbers, but just frankly weren't that good, weren't that efficient. And like you said, that's what led Ben Johnson to go after in the first 2 rounds of the draft, Colston Love and Luther Burden here, to make sure they get significantly more efficient, significantly better, deeper, more talented at key positions. Because if you look at where the Lions were under Ben Johnson, they had their playmaking core. Obviously, you look at Jameson Williams was a big play guy, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously Williams, all of these guys could generate big plays at the drop of a hat when schemed open, when presented the opportunities. I think Ben Johnson looked at the offense for the Bears last season and said, Keenan Allen, I don't know if he can generate those big plays. Cole Kmet, I don't know if he can generate those big plays. Romo Dunes, think he's got the potential. I'm not 100% sold on him just yet. So what does he do? He goes out and makes sure, okay, we're going to add in a great tight end in Loveland. We're going to add in a great receiver in Luther Burden to make sure no matter what, we are going to have that big play, offensive efficiency, that receiving playmaking ability that I mentioned on my chart that leads directly to wins in a Ben Johnson offense. And again, that's the big takeaway here. I'm going to go back to this chart because it's so important, guys. We've never seen correlation that perfectly aligned where receiving grade on a certain team goes in a direction perfectly correlated with wins. It's clear that that's what works with Ben Johnson. Credit to him for recognizing it, and also credit to him and Ryan Poles working together to make sure they improve on that when it comes to their new team, of course, the Chicago Bears. I think Bears fans, you should be very excited by this because, again, this means if the data supports and passes prolonged, the Bears are in for a very successful 2025 season and a very successful future as well.